Welcome, Warriors. This is World Warrior 101, and today we're going to be talking about the final fight and its variations and my experience playing. So, let's get into it. There was undoubtedly nothing final about Final Fight, which was originally intended to be the follow-up to the enormously popular Street Fighter. It would be ported from arcades, made available on a variety of platforms, and inspire several sequels and spin-offs. Final Fight, which debuted on US Super Nintendo in November 1991, was a very faithful version of its arcade brethren. The game held up under inspection despite a few minor flaws, censoring Katana's original name of Sodom, eliminating Guy as a playable character, or hiding Poison's partially exposed boobs. But one apparent flaw was the game's perplexing and excruciatingly infuriating castrating of its extremely entertaining two-player option. For those who haven't played the game, Hager, a gigantic beast, declines to assist Mad Gear in his attempt to rule the city's streets. The villainous Mad Gear kidnaps Hager's daughter, Jessica, and takes her captive. Hager picks up the phone and tells Cody, Jessica's skilled fighter boyfriend, about the dire circumstances. With the wrath of a father's rage and the frustration of a boyfriend who had lost his Scrabble partner, the two took to the streets. The rate at which the two insult each other is worrisome. Cody is a balanced fighter that can still move around freely while providing respectable damage to foes. Hager moves more slowly yet deals more severe punches. Cody could first be simpler to use for beginners. Both characters have a vast range of crippling punches, kicks, smashes, and throws at their disposal. The character may punch by just hitting X, jump by pressing B, and kick while in the air by pressing X. By locating roast hams and chickens concealed in barrels and crates, health can be replenished along the road, fine dining at its best. The gaming continues to be pretty enjoyable even after an additional 15 years. As the side-scrolling beat-em-up advances via its flimsy plot, cans of whoop-ass are released at every opportunity. The character names and models are extremely hilarious, even though the entire plot isn't really interesting. You'll encounter endearing characters like El Gato, Hollywood, and even Anor, who is based on the illustrious Frenchman and wrestler Andre the Giant. Anor is the Japanese pronunciation of Andre. Beware of his seeming placid facade, a tank top covered in bright pink glitter. He would not hesitate to seize Cody or Hager and pile-drive them into the ground. He pile-drives him like Zangief from Street Fighter II, and I mean that, oh, and Hager punches like Blanka, as is the flame animation for someone set ablaze. You can't really fault Capcom for reusing impressive animations. The game's mechanics and AI are very similar to Street Fighter, which isn't necessarily a negative thing. The sound most definitely is not authentic to the arcade version, despite the graphics being. The effects constantly cut in and out on the Super Nintendo due to a subpar audio chip relative to the arcade version. Even if it doesn't affect the gameplay, it is still a glaring annoyance. The removal of the original two-player cooperative option, which was so much fun in the arcade, is far worse than the sound problems. Although if the game's single-player story may hold its own, it definitely aches not to be able to control Hager and Cody with a friend. The only way to purchase Final Fight Guy in the US was through a Blockbuster straight from Japan exclusive and released 2 years after its Japanese counterpart. Complete versions of the game are quite difficult to locate, yet Blockbuster is a large video rental corporation in the US. The image on the right shows what appears to be a different edition of the game with a black cover. Perhaps this was an official release that followed the Blockbuster exclusive. The game was available in shops in Japan. I'm not sure if the special Final Fight Guy music CD was a part of the original game or a special deal, but it had 4 songs on it, including Now the Time Final Fight, Take the Field, Fear Nothing, and Strife in My Head. The sole difference between this and the SNES version of Final Fight is Guy has taken Cody's place. Also, there are some bonus power-ups and other things. If you're going to purchase something, do so in Japanese. When it was released in the States, Blockbuster was the only place to rent it, and they removed the 2 girl foes and changed the names of 2 of the bosses. Get the Japanese version instead because they left the two girl foes in and didn't change the names of the bosses, but if you do, make sure it comes with the bonus CD. The Alf Lyra Sound Crew updated 4 of the Final Fight songs on the special CD, an audio CD with 4 playable tracks. These are excellent. The second song is a medley. Make sure the special CD is included. Only the Japanese edition came with the special CD. If you possess a SNES and are excited to play as Guy, don't worry about the CD and simply grab this game. If not, don't worry about it. The version on the Game Boy Advance is a small miracle. It's the arcade game's greatest translation to date. First of all, it includes the Industrial Zone omitted from the 1990 Super Nintendo translation as well as all 6 arcade levels. Also, Final Fight 1 has all 3 of the original characters, the versatile Cody, the bulky Hager, and the quick Guy, in contrast to that version. What's more, it enables 2 players to play together utilizing 2 systems and a connection cable. Even more crucially, the 2-player mode performs admirably and doesn't lag when there is a lot of activity on screen, which is almost always because that is how Final Fight players want it. Regrettably, there are some errors in the translation. For some reason, generic male punks have taken the role of Roxy and Poison, the 2 female punks. This also applied to the SNES version, although it doesn't really justify it. Some minor visual adjustments include the removal of the flickering fluorescent light effect from the arcade and a few backdrop animations. The game's soundtrack also struggles a little with translation. There are 5 varying degrees of difficulty, from very simple to very hard. There is a cap on the amount of continues you may use, however, in contrast to the arcade and SNES versions, your progress is preserved after each level. The 2-player mode's limitless retries without a restriction on the total number of tries is a little annoying feature. Of course, you could just resolve to allow a set amount of retries, but let's be honest, we all know that noble decisions like that seldom stick around for very long. A few bonuses have been added, maybe to make up for the minor ways in which Final Fight 1 departs from its arcade origin. Before each of the boss fights, there are now a few brief cutscenes. Although it's not a big deal, they do add some fantastic new tough guy speech, such keep your mouth shut. Be prepared. A point system that opens up a number of benefits is also included. Yet none of the perks really add up. Nothing is even close to the quality of, say, a picture gallery. Making Guy and Cody wear their Street Fighter Alpha outfits is perhaps the nicest bonus. The remaining awards all fall into the category of extra lives, level selection, and other very generic incentives. Every console's life cycle ends with a bittersweet taste. The majority of the time, a system's finest games are published in the latter stages of its life. But there is also an abundance of cheap junk and shovelware. As an example, one simply needs to consider the PS1, which was released after Sony ceased caring. Also, some great jewels emerge, and Mighty Final Fight unquestionably falls within this category. Against all odds, Mighty Final Fight manages to offer many of the same thrills as its arcade big brother in a more compact format designed just for the NES. This game is fantastic. With a hint of comedy, the game follows the same overall storyline as the arcade. Jessica is abducted by the Mad Gear, but this time they have other motives. It appears that Belger, their leader, has developed feelings for her and wants to compel her to wed him. For some reason, Hager accuses Cody right away, but he still intends to undertake a rescue operation with Guy and Cody. Mighty Final Fight wasn't supposed to succeed. Final Fight served as a demonstration of Capcom's CPS-1 hardware in the arcade. Although both 16-bit systems acquired capable ports, they were still unable to match the coin-op. And they wished to make the game available for the NES? Against all odds, it succeeds and, in some ways, surpasses the arcade game in fun. This game is fantastic all over and one of the best beat-em-ups for the system. Playing the game now is exactly as enjoyable as it was 15 years ago. It has a side-scrolling feel, right down to the attacks and animations, to the responsive and uncomplicated controls. Notwithstanding the aforementioned shortcomings and omissions, those who haven't played are therefore invited to do so in order to witness what some of the hottest arcade ports of the 16-bit era looked like. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we will be playing and reviewing all the Street Fighter II series of games, where I will think about playing all the versions and updates. Until next time.